1953. Cold War paranoia was at its peak. Fear of war, nuclear destruction, and of course, communist takeover. It was a year that UFOs were on everyone's mind. Out of that tension came a small, quietly unsettling sci-fi film that didn't show towering destruction or global panic, but brought the invasion down to one frightened little boy in a small suburban town. Let's get into it. Fantasy, sci-fi, horror, rerun zone. Years before Invasion of the Body Snatchers, there was Invaders from Mars, an alien takeover film that, while very much a B-movie, really grabs you in the first few minutes. The story centers around a young boy named David, who believes he sees a flying saucer land behind the sandy hill near his home late one night. He tries to convince his father that it wasn't a dream, but his dad puts him back to bed. We'll get into it in the morning, son. The real terror starts when his father decides to investigate young David's claim and is swallowed up by the sandpit. He comes back later that morning but is different, changed, distant, cold. David notices something frightening. It's an alien implant embedded in the back of his father's neck. He warns David not to tell anyone about his crazy theories or the saucer sighting. Before long, though, neighbors start acting the same way, and David notices the same metallic implants in the back of their necks. Next door neighbor, little Kathy Wilson, is sucked into the sandpit, and when David tries to warn her mom, Kathy shows up with a blank look on her face, after having set fire to the house. The local police chief brushes off David's warning, but we see that he also has an implant in the back of his neck. But one kind policeman, who hasn't yet been compromised, sees that the boy is terrified and calls health department physician Dr. Pat Blake to help him. She talks to the boy, but when his parents show up at the police station to take him, Dr. Blake, who believes David's story, stops them, saying the boy is sick. Instead, she takes him to see the local astronomer, Dr. Kelston, who confirms that the flying saucer is probably the vanguard of an invasion from the planet Mars, since it is now in close orbital proximity to Earth. You'll really have to suspend your disbelief here, but remember, this is 1953. There is barely an effects budget, and the acting is a little over the top in some places. But like I said earlier, this is very much a B-movie. What makes this film so different, though, from most 1950s invasion stories, is the scale of the movie. It's all localized in this one little town. There's no global panic. It's more personal. There's just one terrified little boy, realizing he might be completely alone, while everyone around him is changing into something frightening and something very different. In a Cold War America obsessed with hidden enemies and mind control, Invaders from Mars quietly asked a horrifying question. What if they didn't land in the cities first? What if they took over your family from the inside, one person at a time? Hollywood was still constrained by the production code at the time, so more grotesque material had trouble getting made. But the core emotional story still survived intact. The film was directed by William Cameron Menzies, one of the most influential figures of the golden age of Hollywood. Menzies wasn't just a director, he was an artist who literally invented the title of production design. His previous credits include The Thief of Baghdad, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and Gone with the Wind, for which he won a special Academy Award for visual production. So when Menzies directed Invaders from Mars, he approached it like an art project, not just a monster movie. That's why the movie has such a carefully staged, unnatural look. Slightly tilted interiors, stretched or compressed spaces, and sets that feel almost hallway long and cavernous. The infamous sandy hill that swallows its victims looks more like a painted nightmare slope than real terrain. Almost everything was filmed on sound stages, not real locations, even the outdoor scenes. Instead of hiding the artificiality, Menzies leaned into a stylized approach that made the whole film feel larger than life and slightly unreal. It made the movie feel less like reality and more like a nightmare. Most people remember the alien leader, the giant floating head in the bubble, but the regular Martians actually look nothing like that. They're tall humanoids dressed in what looks like green hooded pajamas. It was the result of a tiny effects budget and was a practical solution to very real limitations. One of the movie's most striking sci-fi ideas is the neck implant used to control humans. This concept didn't come from hard science. It came from the political paranoia of the era. 1950s America was saturated with the fear of communist infiltration, or so-called sleeper agents. Hollywood translated that anxiety into alien control. It was a safer way to talk about mind control, obedience, and loss of autonomy without touching politics directly. Where many alien movies of the period showed humanity fighting monsters, Invaders from Mars dared to suggest that the monsters could look exactly like us. That fear hit far closer to home. Young David McClane, played by child actor Jimmy Hunt, later returned in the 1986 remake of Invaders from Mars, this time playing the role of a police chief, a callback to the kid who once didn't trust the authorities who had ignored him. The controversial "It Was a Dream" ending wasn't beloved by everyone who worked on the film, but it was partially a production code compromise. Studios were worried that ending the film with uncontested alien infiltration would be a little too bleak, too hopeless, or too unsettling for a younger audience. So the dream framing was added to allow the story to wind down while still sneaking in one final ominous note. The ending technically doesn't say the invasion won't happen. It just says that this particular nightmare is over, for now. Now here's a few things that even longtime sci-fi fans might not know about this movie. This was the very first full-length alien invasion movie shot in full color. Not one of the early ones, it was actually the first. It used a process called Super Cinecolor, which gave the film that slightly heightened, almost storybook look, perfect for the dreamlike tone of the story. The movie was produced super fast and super cheap, so it could arrive in theaters before War of the Worlds premiered in 1953. They wanted to beat the competition to the box office. The film also had a huge childhood impact on future filmmakers. Directors like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, and Joe Dante have all mentioned Invaders from Mars as something that stuck with them growing up. And the famous melting tunnel wall effect wasn't high-tech at all. It was literally done with inflated latex and boiling oatmeal dyed red to create that bubbling, collapsing look. And it still works better than a lot of other early optical effects do. The British release used a different final scene that more clearly shows the saucer being destroyed, while the US version stuck with the more ambiguous dream ending that we all know, leaving that eerie, maybe it's not over yet feeling hanging in the air. And finally, in 2024, the Library of Congress officially selected Invaders from Mars for preservation in the National Film Registry. Recognize it as a commercially and historically important film. Pretty remarkable honor for what was a small, fast-track B-movie. If you've never seen Invaders from Mars, or haven't seen it in a while, it's definitely worth a watch, and a 4K restoration is now available for purchase. I'll leave a link in the description below, as well as a link if you just want to stream it online with commercials. This is Rich from Rerun Zone. Thanks for watching, and good night.